Hi everyone. Today I want to share my presentation for the second week of the Introduction to Python course for everyone who couldn't be there in person last week. So in the second week, we talked about uh, functions and figures. Well, actually, this lecture consisted of two parts. The first, we introduced what functions are, how to use them, and why to use them. And the second, um, about how to use figures, how to make figures in Python. But during the class, because we do exercises in the middle, after discussing the functions part, I noticed that I was a bit overly ambitious, that I put too much information into this single lecture. So the third week, we are continuing with figures, and today it's all about functions. So what are functions actually? A definition that I found is that a function is a callable unit of software logic that can be invoked multiple times. And the that it can be invoked multiple times part, that is very important because we use functions essentially to avoid copying code. Whenever you want to copy code, don't use a function instead, because with a function you can basically define a section of code, you give it a name, the function name, and you can call that name to use the function. And in that way, you can use a function many times and make use of a specific section of code many times in different ways. One thing that is important to understand and know is that there is a difference between local and global variables. Local variables are only defined inside a function, and global variables are available everywhere. So this means that if you have a local variable that is only defined in your function, then if you make use of this variable outside of your function, it's going to result in an error because it is not going to have something assigned. It doesn't know that variable outside of the function definition. Global variables, sorry, you can use them everywhere in your code, inside of different functions and in the body, the main part of your code. A function exists of a function name. This is what you use to call the function. Zero, one, or many arguments, however many you want, that you can use as input variables. And then you have the body of your function, of course, and finally it ends with a return statement. And this can be used to export variables. So if you have um, a local variable in a function, you can return that variable, and then outside of the function, you can assign that returned value to a variable that is globally defined. And then you can use it in different parts of your code as well. So why do we use functions? Um, to prevent us from having to copy code, because if you copy a lot of code, it's going to be hard to see what you're doing. And especially if you change little things, it's going to be a mess, basically. So this is why we use functions. It makes your code easier to recycle because you can also import in a different script a function from your script and use it again. You can copy the function and it's clear like which it is, but importing is best. And it makes your code easier to reuse. It makes it easier to read for other people as well. Usually we start with function definitions in the beginning of a script, and then later the main body of the code that makes use executes the functions. And this makes your code much more readable. To give an example, the syntax of a function in Python is the following. We start with the keyword def, it stands for define, and then we write the name of the function. So that can be anything you want, and that's going to be what we call the function with. In this example, we use get product as the function name, and then we see A and B. These are the arguments that we can provide the function. So when we call this function, we can call it with different values of A and B, and we will get a different product returned. And it exports the variable product. In this case, there's also a local variable, which is equal to 10. It's just there as an example. It doesn't do anything right now, but you could actually use it inside of your code. So if you say product times local variable inside your function, then you can multiply your product by 10, for example, but that local variable, you cannot use it outside of this function because it's not returned and assigned to a global variable outside of your function. And then in this image in the bottom, if we try to print product, it's going to result in an error because you first have to assign, even though it's returned, you first have to assign product to a variable, and then you can print that variable. Or you can do as the second case, print get product to 4. You print the returned value. And the third doesn't work because, well, local variable is not defined everywhere, anywhere outside of the function. Print product also doesn't work, the first one, because no arguments are provided, and that's also required if your function has arguments like this without default values. So then there's the coding part, the practicing part. The notebook for this section is called Q2A functions.ipynb. Like always, you can ask any questions on the Discord group, me and other people. There are many people in the group who would be happy to help with any questions as well. And myself, I will have keep an eye on the Discord as well. I hope you find this useful, and I hope to see you in the next session.